So, all right. December 18th, 1944, the German 6th Panzer Army spearheads had the chance to take some vital bridges over the Amblev and Salem rivers and capture the big U.S. fuel depot along the north road of Stavelot, or is it Stavelot? I don't know. Probably Stavelot or something Frenchy like that, speaking these Belgians do. It was apparently defended by few U.S. engineers, so that is what we're going to be playing here. Okay, game in progress, please start your turn. Okay, so we have weather mist, and you, depending on the weather, time of day, and the reconnaissance elements of the particular unit, you know, the chip on the field, definitely shows you how much, you know, how well you spot the enemy, whether it's just a colored chip on the map, or if it's giving full details, or if you don't see it at all. There's a lot going on with it. It is not a simple just notice, as well as the type of terrain you're in, the height of the terrain going along, the type of terrain the enemy is in, you know, if they're in the forest versus out in the open. All of that really matters. Okay. Axis has 2 victory points occupied on the map, needs 100 victory points for a major victory, 80 for a minor victory. Last round is December 20th, and we're starting on the 18th. Okay, so we need to, and there's 4 turns or rounds, or however you want to look at it, per day, 3 day and 1 in the night per day. Let me sound a little. Okay, we've got a bunch of cards. Right. Okay, there's the fuel depot we need to get to there, but we need to also get a total of 100, well, 80 some points here. We have what looks to be Conf Gruppe Piper. Oh, well, let's finish up with Berlin from the last, so he won't be here. Well, so he takes over Panzer Lair and fights in Normandy. It's transferred down after the invasion to there, slips out of the Falaise pocket, and then the next major action is what we saw in the Ardennes Offensive for Panzer Lair, and surrenders eventually in the Ruhr pocket. Well, okay, and I do want to finish up on him because it's sort of interesting little tidbit about it. He is a prisoner of war from April 45 until April 47, so he spends 2 years in captivity, and he starts to work for the U.S. Army Historical Division at this time, writing histories along with other generals of the European battles. So he's basically, you know, well, I don't know whether he's at a typewriter pounding it out or, you know, writing with a pen, but he's cranking out his, you know, what he knows as a staff officer and writing histories of battles for the U.S. Army. And then, you know, he continues that even after being released. He continues to, and a bit of an author on some books or for some other things. And then he is credited as technical advisor for the 1961 film The Guns of Navarone. Now, I know there's a lot of youngsters out there like Eric who probably have not seen The Guns of Navarone, and I would highly recommend it. Now, it is a fantasy movie set within World War II. There was no Guns of Navarone. There was no mission like that. But it is a great movie nonetheless, and you should all watch it. Hey, Tinky. Yeah, I know, but I'm using him as a foil if he's still here. Good to have you here. I hope you're doing well. And so anybody who hasn't seen The Guns of Navarone, you should do so. So wait till after the stream, find it on whatever streaming service, however you do that stuff. It's starring Greg, and I know I throw out these names that probably mean nothing to you, but starring Gregory Peck and David Niven. David Nevin, who also served in World War II, as well as a great actor. So now, and it says credited with technical advisor to the Guns of Navarone. And I want to sort of illustrate what that might mean. Forget who it was, but one historian I saw, he related this tale. Another historian, and he was like a historian of the classical era, Hellenic Greece, or the Hellenistic Greece, and Roman Empire and all that stuff. And for some movie, and it may have even been one of the recent Alexander the Great movies, I forget, but he was a technical advisor, and one of the other historians sort of called him out on all the stuff on it, and he says, yeah, I was on set a lot. Once a guy came over to me carrying a flag, and he asked, did they normally carry these out in front of the guy, the guys with the pikes, or did they carry them off to the back or the side? And his response was, that's a cavalry standard. And that was the extent of his technical advisors to the movie. So technical advisors to a movie is often just a credit, and you get paid for it. So yeah, don't overly necessarily take a lot. Won't lie, it's nice to watch and chill. Finish exam 4 minutes or 6 starting. Yeah, well, good. I hope you did well in your exam. I really do. I remember those days somewhat fondly at school, at least college, but they can be quite stressful. Motherly stress, overall fine, relaxing, just listening mostly. Sure thing, Tinky. Okay. Last I heard, your back wasn't doing well. I hope that's doing much better. So that's Bear, Linda. No, I have not. But we will be maybe talking a little bit about Kampfgruppe Piper here. Okay, so, and yes, this is a very interesting game. I do like it a lot. Okay, and it is part of Panzer Lehr. Oh, not Panzer Lehr, but Liebstandart Adolf Hitler. The shield, there's some evidence that some of the shield was sort of kind of used, I guess, in some vehicles like this. But the key, Sepp Dietrich, and I'm forgetting his first name. Sepp is, I guess, German for key. I think Tinky could either confirm or deny or whatever, but that was sort of Dietrich's nickname, and that gets to be the divisional symbol fairly early on with that. Yeah, I never had a take-home exam, but then again, we lived in the pre-electronic age when I was doing things. We did have. Now, I do know that, yeah, Rona times, yes. I guess that could be a thing that was very much not. We would have just been dying in the middle of the classroom. That wouldn't have bothered the teachers much. Yeah, we did, of course, write papers a lot. Okay, so we need to get to this supply depot. And we need to take some points here. Just going to look at our units. So we do have 11 Tiger 2s. We want to. Okay. Oh, we need to hit this. I wish it started on the move instead of sort of examine. Right. That does not look like a good odds of attacking there. I think we'll go with this. Just well, oh, okay. Gamer needs to learn his lesson and use artillery prep well or better. Affect it. Okay, so we took out an artillery piece, a panzer, a bazooka, and 3 squads, it looks like. So they're going to be much less of a trouble. And before we get moving, we're going to also pound them. These guys here. That hurt them considerably as well. We're going to just attack with this unit, not bringing any additional forces. It's going to be overwhelming as it is, it looks like. At least it looks like. They retreated back to there. Okay. Here, 10-1. I'm going to do this attack alone again, just because I'm trying not to use up other action points of other units. Okay, now this will just be firing our indirect fire weapons, mortars, I presume. It's a bomb. Well, okay, we're bombarding with our tanks and everything else. It's part of that unit. Movement cost. This is actually quicker. Here along the road, across the bridge. Oh, it's not nice. Still have enough to attack. Yeah, we are. Oh, it's only 20%. Yeah. They held. Not good. We want to clear the way to the depot. Damn. $45. I was hoping to not to be able to just do it. Okay, they retreated now finally to there, but that doesn't allow. Damn. Okay. Well. Maybe we bumped it to another unit. 14, whatever this is. Ooh, this is how not to do this. This is a lesson on how not to do this. Okay, now we have some reconnaissance. We can see here with the various reconnaissance units, this is going to be a better look-see on the enemy. Hopefully, bump into there. Now we're going to. Oh. This. And is that both? Okay, just both going to be with mortars, indirect fire type. I think we need to push. We've been doing how not to do it, so let's try to do. They've retreated that way. Got whatever's there. Well, we don't have. Well, okay. I was going to say we don't have much, but what I'm going to do is, I like to do get extra fuel right early on. Play this card. Originally a supply source. So we used up, well, we do have this, so. Not the political power, this is cheap, so let's. Let's go down here. So we used up there. We got these guys here as additional 4 SIGs, 440 troops with nearly 40 half tracks there. It looks to be a couple of pack 40s there. So we got a nice support coming there. The only dream of a take-home exams in the 70s while living in a shoebox, credit money, Python kind of. Yeah, the presumption, I think, has greatly changed about well, see, hey, Beam Slam, are we winning? Yeah, mostly. We won the last Road to Donnet series, major victory there. See, I'd hardly call a take-home thing an exam. There used to be a presumption that you needed to know things. Now, with the internet and your phones, you still need a basic a base of knowledge for sure, but it's much more skills at finding out information than having all the detailed information all at once. Now, yeah, cheating is always a risk, but various professors I had, this is in the age before electronic devices. You had your number 2 pencil or your pen, and sometimes an exam would be a written exam that we would have it, what we called a blue book. You would have to buy it. It was a standard book, but it was a blank, flimsy sort of book thing to write in. And unless it leaked, you might come in at the beginning of the exam and find up on the chalkboard the question, or a couple, 2 or 3 questions, and you have to write a page or 2 or whatever on that question, and you had no ability to look anything up. So I don't know, unless it cheated, I don't know how you're gonna cheat, because you can't look in a book unless somehow you got a leak of what the question was going to be, or the questions, like 2 or 3 questions. And so, yeah, if you studied your course material well, you couldn't look in a book. I don't know how much you're going to write on your palms of your hands, or or I don't know, somewhere have little things. So the people grading is still the same as before. They're still tutors, etc. They can tell a good response from their original. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but see, where I look at it as more as an essay that you're writing, as opposed to an exam, at least in sort of the American sense of it, because we definitely had, go write 3 pages on whatever topic, whether it was a historical topic, because being a history and political science major for myself, or if it's some other, marine biology or whatever. Yeah, we had definitely take home and write up a paper on something, and bring it back the next class day, whether it's the next day or a couple days later or whatever. Definitely had those kinds of things, but that I wouldn't call it an exam, because that's not how I would, my thing. So yeah, and the other type of exam would be, a little Scantron thing that you would have a number two pencil and you would fill in the dot from a multiple choice question. And so again, unless that test leaked, and they did at times, I'm sure, because the teachers would get lazy and they would use it for multiple classes. Yeah, people could write stuff down, but it wasn't impossible. I'm sure, because I'm sure people did cheat, but it's just a lot harder, I would say. Oh yeah, well that's just and so like I call what you're doing is an essay writing, and with a and again when I was back as a student is this for university that would be back in the 90s for me, that would just writing an essay, and then it would be graded either by the professor or probably in most cases where it was a professor or maybe a teacher's assistant, but they would presume you would look up things, but you still had to write the exam, and it was the idea is that you had the experience of being able to look stuff up, being able to find the stuff, then writing a coherent response to whatever it was. So yeah, that kind of thing. Okay, so we played all of our political power cards for that. We bring up him here. I don't know. We should have done an attack card because I really wanted to get this turn here, but nothing really to do now. So yeah, we sort of push what we can. So we're just above zero, so we're not quite freezing. Light precipitation, light raining. We need to get to 100 cards turning. Okay, KG Sandy. Okay, so we have that. Now I'm going to presume that there are some opposition between here and there. Okay, we found our opposition. We are going to put on our artillery fire. We're going to try to overwhelm them. Is it possible? We're going to boot them, not tickle them. And they held. Wow. They held. That's just a weird 1-to-1. They retreated. Very good. Did any of these actually make it into the... Yeah, I don't think I'm going to pursue pushing that any harder. This unit up. Thugs. Yeah, we'll play this one. lay it down there too. Okay, so we got that 3 Panthers, 5 Panzer IV, 2 Pumas, looks like a pack 40. Okay, so we're going to add some more Panzer Grenadiers, so we're going to be following along. Need to uncover if there was anybody in that town. We're going to wait to bring up some more firepower there. Yeah. I think that will be it with this turn. Now, of course, just remember all of my talking about um, exams and whatever is just an old guy saying, we used to have to walk to school 10 miles to school barefoot uphill in the snow each way. You know, it's just how much harder it was back in our days. That's all it is. Okay. So we now have new rear area card as we're bringing in our forces. Yeah, of course. Hello, my friend Arno. How are you doing? Yes, of course. Well, see, I'm a city boy, Tinky, so it wouldn't be harvesting turnips, but yo, I know. No, this is not a good time. This is not a good time. So many reasons. Ah, try to be smart about them. Movement cost 55. Okay, so we can move up to these hills here for about the same amount of effort. I think I don't know why that gives me better thought odds, but I guess it It figures so. Okay, Joachim Piper, another sort of interesting guy. He's, of course, most famous for commanding this battle group, Kampf Group A, in the battle. Yeah, going on with each other. Yes, an SS guy, thoroughly despicable character like all of these guys. Um, I want to check out here. I'm definitely responsible for a few massacre type war crimes. He does get out of prison. I'm scrolling down here in Wikipedia. I'm trying to remember because I think he had a rather mysterious death. We'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so I think we'll keep some pressure up here. Yeah, we'll attack them. Put it on. I think here, now down here. That geared us into there. Good. Doesn't quite secure the flank, but definitely is moving in that direction. Okay, so we took out a couple of artillery, well, total of 5 artillery pieces and a truck. I think we will try to move up to here. Yeah. Yeah, these guys have been hit with that artillery. We're going to. Okay, we got 2 of them to retreat. 1 of them held without too heavy of losses for ourselves. So weaken them while we can. We are bringing this up. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Now, we have a lot of Wehrmacht possibilities, but we can still bring in more of Liebstandard Division for pretty cheap. We have 9 points currently. Yeah, let's bring in the 1st SS Panzer Regiment. And we'll bring him in here. Okay, so we have 16 Jagdpanzer 470 LA. These, at least by the picture, these are the Alquette versions of the 470L. They have the same gun as, virtually the same gun as more just the mountings are different, as a Panther. It does have a sort of a vertical plate right in there. You can't really see on this because of the side skirts here. It's not that it's thin, it's just that it's vertical, so it's weaker. And then 15 Panzer IVs with the L48 guns, a little bit of infantry, a couple of whirlwinds with that unit. And here, 31 Panthers with 20 infantry, just a little bit of it, and an Ostwind. It's a 37 millimeter gun on top of a Panzer IV. Now, one thing I didn't until a year or two ago know that basically my understanding is all of the Wirbelwinds and Ostwinds were weren't made as such. They were basically done off of returned hulls, and there's a surprising amount of that kind of thing going on, that the Germans are returning the hulls, and it does sort of make sense because although there is a tank hull here, this armor up here probably wouldn't even stop a 50 caliber machine gun. So you're not looking at like trying to have the most armored version of a tank. So if you have an older, outdated hull that's not quite as up armored as a late version Panzer IV, like the G model or the H model or whatever, slightly older versions of it, you might as well use those. But it's even to the point of like the one they're restoring up in Canada. I was watching a video, is how I found out about this, is the one that in the Canadian military museum, when they were going into to restore it to get it to really good condition, looked around and they figured out that the sort of upper hull deck and parts were from one tank, and the lower hull, we're not just talking the turret that's out on lower hull, was from a different Panzer IV by serial numbers and some of the markings inside. So a lot of the I'm sure some were a working hull that were brought back in together, but some of these weren't. And so they were taking the time. You have to understand this. Yeah, it's quicker than building a fresh tank, but they're taking the time in the factory to pull out damaged wrecks, cut them apart, and weld them back together. Now, the Americans would never even consider doing this because they're just cranking out more tanks, and spending all that time would just be silly to them. Sure, they were in the field in the European theater of operations, bringing in lightly damaged tanks, knocked out. But I remember watching a documentary where one guy was saying you never got the smell out, because one of the stuff that they're doing is after some of the Shermans were knocked out, they were bringing them back in there, and they would go in because it had been on fire, or if it hadn't been, they're going in and scraping off the human remains from the inside of the tank, trying to get all that off, and then you still couldn't get the smell out of it, so they were repainting the insides of it, over it. Still couldn't quite, but they were putting them back out there. And so they're doing some field repairs, but not to the point, and then patching up the hole where it was penetrated, but they weren't like rebuilding the things. It just shows the desperation that the Germans were in, as well as the inefficiency of German production. German production was not efficient. It was very well done, had a high technical quality, but it was not efficient production, as from everything that I have read. but it also shows you, how many tanks were knocked out in XYZ battle. Yeah, but if you sort of kind of win, or if you're losing not too bad, so many of those vehicles are recovered, and we know a little bit better from documents about, in North Africa. All of Rommel had, a headquarters unit, yes, but he had sort of a mobile headquarters unit, and all of famously there were two big trucks that were communication trucks, called Mammoths or whatever, that were British, that were captured, that he used, that were really good for radio trucks, headquarters trucks. But all the fighting vehicles were all captured, German markings on them. And he would use this not just as a headquarters guard, but as a quick reaction force. You must be asked, was there Ostwind expected to focus of the enemy attention? Haha. Yeah. It would support the teeth, but not the fort itself, still close to the front. Yes. They were definitely a keep up with the armor idea. In that this Ostwind would be close enough to these Panthers to do anti-aircraft support. So within the 37 millimeter, which more or less is the same effective range as these 20 millimeter guns, a little longer, but probably in effective as in hitting your target, whether it's an aircraft or a ground target. It's same practical range. Now, you wouldn't be, because I don't know, you guys play War Thunder or not, you wouldn't be driving randomly around the battlefield and shooting the place up. You would have infantry out around, you would have your other tanks around that are, the screening and identifying the where the enemy is, and these would be following in their wake. The turret armor is light. That's partially just because you need to do so to be able to turn the turret rapidly. If you have heavy armor, they didn't have. I guess the Germans could have built, but it would have been difficult to build an electronic motor that would turn that turret fast enough. If it was armored to take tank rounds. So it's light, thin armor. 20 millimeters will penetrate it easily. Whether like in an aircraft, 50 cals probably would for strafing. But you got to realize, if you're like being artilleried or rocketed or bomb dropped from enemy aircraft, you can be killed from a shock wave, or seriously, knocked out or put out of action or whatever. So just having a metal shield around you like that would just help with the shock wave, if nothing else. Now, from a 105 millimeter howitzer landing nearby, and a big chunk of shrapnel would just rip through the light armor where the crew compartment is. But lighter fragments would probably be stopped by it, and again, that shock wave would be stopped or mitigated from it. So it would be up there, and the Americans, who had a quad 50 cal mounting on half tracks, that ended up not being used very much as an anti-aircraft gun because the Americans didn't need them. They were ruling the skies mostly. They found them to be very good, infantry suppression weapons, and so would these be. And so they would be brought up when where, there's guys over in the woods over here, and you plaster the tree line with a bunch of 20 millimeter fire or something like that quite effectively, and their armor would be enough to stop regular machine gun and rifle bullets quite effective. These would be up there with them. Where if we're looking at this unit here, which I did bring up because, hey, there's 13 Flak 88s. Those are good at bombarding, direct fire on enemy ground positions, as well as tanks. But they've got 7 37 millimeter guns that are towed, and 4 more Wirbelwinds with, quad 20 millimeters, the Fox-Verlaine. And so, these kind of towed weapons, they've got to stay a bit further back. And within the scale of this game, they would get this close to the enemy to do it. Famously, there was a Flak 18, the early versions of these, in the Battle of France that I don't know if they were Salmas or Charbis, but they were pushing in on some German armor, and the German armor just couldn't penetrate it. And Rommel spots a small unit of Flak 88s and personally goes over to the unit. I think it was a Luftwaffe unit, because they had some Luftwaffe units up on the front lines doing that, and directs them to use the 88s as anti-tank guns against the heavier French armor quite effectively. So that, direct fire support, and it was already that close, if not when he goes to get the unit in line of sight of the enemy, they were near enough to do a quick shift of position and firing. So that's all the way back in the Battle of France. So these are definitely used as a frontline support as well. Yeah, the Battle of Arras, I believe that was happening at XTRG. So yeah, there's a lot, combined arms is definitely the way to go with all of these types of vehicles, and I like the way that this is set up, in that you have, a little bit of infantry here riding some muleteers, half-track trucks, supporting these units, and that's very much historical. Or you have a unit here that has, 200 Panzer Grenadiers with a few tanks, or like here you've got similar. Where were they? Okay. This unit down here. No tanks here, but you have these 150 millimeter heavy infantry guns, shorter range. And armored with 400. So this is pretty good. With a couple of good anti-tank Pak 40s and some Panzer Screks to deal with enemy armor they may encounter. Hey, Tony First Gen. Yeah, some you've missed. Hey, I've been brilliant here playing, and I won the last battle. And we're on the second scenario here. No, we're not going to do any sort of attacks here. Hey. Well, I like NATO icons, but this does work too, for sure. And it's up to players' style, what they're used to reading. Like Death Ride series board games. Yeah, I probably would. I played a lot of those back in the day, but quite honestly, mostly I've given them up for computer games. Just finding local opponents is a bit difficult. Okay, so we moved up. I think this is good. Let's look at cards. Rear area, replacements. We're going to build up, I think. We'll bring in some more fuel. Maybe we got 7 political points, as they're calling them here. Yeah, I think this is good. Was armor but light, not meant versus hit by a pebble, repelled by an artillery shell hurts. Yes. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, on the SDKSZ, those were half tracks. Yeah, it was armored, but yeah, light armor. So that they were half tracks for the self-propelled guns. Don't know if if we can see any well displayed here. Most of them that were for anti-aircraft type use. Here, right down here, this vehicle here is basically unarmored. Um, I say that because there's definitely photos of field modifications that are slapping a few extemporaneous bits of armor, and of course it has the gun shield. But basically, it's just a prime mover, a lighter one normally. Um, that's a half track. That's a RSO, which is a fully tracked truck that's rather slow, developed because of the Eastern Front. And here is the mobile wagon or moving wagon. I'll get a better picture by clicking on it up here. This is a 37 millimeter gun. Now, to operate this properly, these sides need to come down, and they form a larger gun platform to give full rotation around. You keep the sides up again, like for infantry support, you'd lower the front one down to sort of shoot it. But to be able to swing this around, you've got to lower the sides. It's that narrow of a situation there. And so it takes a little bit of time to get in and out of operation. Again, this is also on a Panzer IV chassis. So you're going from this, presumably, whether knocked out and repaired or just earlier models that Panzer IVs that have been sent back to the factory for reconditioning or upgrading, and instead of trying to slap on extra armor or something, just pull the turret off, build on the flat mount. Your armor is either up and you're mostly not using the gun, or you're bringing your armor down and you're exposing your crew, so you're upgrading from that to, I guess we can click on this here, to this, or the Ostwind. Get the same vehicle here. The Ostwind, so this is using the same gun, just now in a turret, much better protected. So they're just upgrading this kind of thing. Look, the values myself. Okay, so let's let the AI have their turn. See all the damage they're going to do to us. Okay, so now this is a nighttime. It's overcast just below 0. We have 32 victory points. And we have a new card. I think these are Nibble offers. We'll see. Okay. Now we know there's somebody up there, but do we want to blunder into them at night? I don't know. We need to get to 80 plus points. Okay, good thing we did that, so I didn't blunder into this other unit. No. Not without some supporting fire. Yeah. Wow, those are some hell of odds. I guess we'll take that. That seems like a losses there, so keep up the pressure on the unit. They held, but they took more damage. Got a hill up over here. We'll do road movement. Okay. There could still be somebody in that town that we haven't seen. Could have done this first, of course. But then again, I forget about doing this too much. Maybe we would have taken out 4 guns, a truck, and a squad there before that attack. That would have been useful. Learn from my mistakes. Learn from my mistakes. Yeah, that special vehicle, SDKFZ. But that's used for so many vehicles. Where's our reconnaissance unit here? Here, you see it's used here. For this is the 222. It's used here for the Puma, as I sort of know it. That's a Czechoslovakian designed vehicle after the Germans took it over. And so you find this used as well, like for the, the 251, the sort of standard size armored half track. You got that so much that it almost, to me, becomes useless in that what does it mean? Yeah, special vehicle. Yeah, I get that it means special vehicle. That element is not really in question for me. Night attack 5-1, 3-1, so that's not as good. Obviously. Yeah. Okay, here's what maybe we should do. Okay, he has 16 points. So what we're going to do here is spend 12 of them, play a card. Oh, yeah. Now, it's 6-1 instead of, what was it, 5-1, I believe. Wow, that didn't do so well. We lost a tank and a couple of half tracks, and they didn't lose too much. Well, they're odds. Now these, the 470s, yeah, Panzer 470s, are very slow, and this is actually the slower, the Alquette version. There was also a Vomag version, which was much lower and sleeker. I like much better. Are really slow because they're so heavily armored. There's basically, it's none that I know of, really upgrading of the Panzer IV engine during the war. So this is a tank that starts out in 1939. Very, very few of them. I'm sure less than 100, but in 39, probably down more like 30 or 40 of them, I think. In 39, obviously a few more by the time you're getting to France. But so it starts in production. It's before the war, and is in production through to the end of the war. And so you're just throwing on a lot more armor, heavier guns, all kinds of things like that on these vehicles. The road wheels, you can't really see them down here. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I can see them there. Maybe this model here. Yeah, these road wheels here, they have a rubber outer lining, tire, if you will. They're called a tire, so that helps cushion the ride, even though it's a solid rubber on a steel. Well, I think it's the first 3, because there's 6 of these road wheels along here, I believe. The first 3 are all steel, so they're the same outer diameter as if it had rubber, but they just made the whole wheel larger, and it's steel because of the extra front weight here of the gun mantlet, the gun, the heavy armor, and it's so heavier, so it's only the rear three that are still using rubber. And on the back, when it's fully equipped or whatever, now how long that lasted I don't know, it would come with one sort of extra rubber road wheel and one extra steel road wheel attached to the back of this compartment here. So you're really slowing that up. So I can really understand, because even though this unit would have an Ostwind, which is another Panzer IV, Panthers are generally a bit faster, so that's moving a bit slower, and so I'm not surprised by that. Talking about Hello somewhere. Yes, love that series. We're moving up our armor. We have 14 points. We have more cards. Rear area. Okay. We're still building up, so I mean, we could bring in a pack 40. Almost bring in a few other units, but I think we're going to continue bringing up our SS formation here with the SS Werfer, 12 Panzer Liebstandart, Abteilung. See, Abteilung is sort of like detachment kind of thing, which can be almost anything. Other than defining it as a sort of a coherent detachment. It could be a battalion size thing, or it could be a squad size thing, or something in between. So Abteilung doesn't tell me too much about it, because I don't know specifically what this historically. So we're going to grind off 2 of these 14 points here. Come in up there down to here. Sort of supply route. I don't really see a good reason to try. I mean, if we held down here, it might be to try to come across these hills so much. There, this bridge is knocked out. I guess we could start up there and come down here. Yeah, maybe that's the way to go. Come along here, because we're going to have these guys either to push in the center or to come down this way. So let's play you here. Let's see what that is. And okay, I think we're doing reasonably well, I think, on fuel, so we'll save the card. Oh yeah, these are Nerbowaffers. Okay, so we have 950 and other 150 millimeter. Don't know what the difference is between why these are separated out. Okay. Well, some are 120 or 210. I don't know. So I don't know. So we have a total of 13 of these. So that will be a fair amount of additional artillery for us. Now I haven't moved these guys up because they've been in range and might not be able to shoot so effectively. So okay, that is reasonably good. So it's morning, it's overcast just below 0. We can see the future round weather predictions are overcast. Again, we're playing with historical weather, so if you know it. Okay, we only have 34 of the 100 plus points needed.